All right, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yes, thanks so much for staying in and being a part of our Urban Rural Food Systems panel. I'm Jasmine Ratliff. I'm an integrative public policy and development PhD student. Yes. And this is actually perfectly tied right into my research. As Dr. Shange may have mentioned earlier, I'm studying local food systems, creating community and economic development in Macon, Montgomery, and Dallas counties. And this is my colleague here.
Hi. My name is Lindsay Lunsford. I'm also in the IPPD program with Jasmine and working as a food system resource specialist with TUSEP, or Tuskegee University Cooperative Extension. Very happy to be here today, but it's not about me and my beautiful friend right here. It is about these beautiful souls to my right, your left. I think that's how that works. And we are going to, we have the lovely job of asking some good questions, right? They say you have not because you ask not. Well, today we're asking, and we are asking these people their expertise on rural and urban food systems, because these are words we're hearing a lot: rural, urban, land, food, people. That's all it is, right? And so before we get into these questions, I'm going to let my panelists give their own introductions. Although they need no introductions, we will ask them to give their own introductions. Thank you.
My name is Flora Brown. I'm from Autauga County, where I was raised up on a farm. I managed the Fairview Farmers Market. We've been there for almost 18 years. I was asked by the agriculture department to come help for a few months so we could keep the place going, but here it is 18 years later and I'm still over there. We're open every day of the week, and our theme is we're bringing fresh fruits and vegetables to your table every day.
So good afternoon. I want to thank Tuskegee University for inviting us to come down from the University of the District of Columbia in Washington, D.C. So the University of the District of Columbia in Washington, D.C. is a land-grant institution. And the only difference, kind of like the other land-grant institution, but the only quite difference is that we are urban-based land-grant institution. So we don't have any large chicken farmers to really address, or cattle farmers, or swine farmers, or big corn and soybean farmers. So everything that we do is specifically focused on urban agricultural production. So right now that we're looking at 2050, they're expecting another possibly maybe 2 to 3 billion people on this planet. So we have to look at other ways of feeding them. So we do a lot of soil-based agriculture. We do aquaponics, hydroponics, and really just fitting these systems into urban areas and addressing food and nutritional security issues.
Thank you. DC.
Hi, my name is Kayla Rowling. I am Montgomery's urban farmer, so I work for the city of Montgomery, and I also work for Eat South, which I am inviting you all to come to tomorrow. It's the location for the expo. And I want to just also give humble thanks for being invited to speak here today. It's truly an honor to be invited to speak on the panel at the 128th Annual Farmers Conference, so thank you very much for the invitation.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. First, giving honor to God, who is the head of our life, and to all of our ancestors on whose shoulders we stand. I want to lift up particularly Phil Parrish, my great-great-grandfather, who was great-grandfather, rather, who is originally from Alabama. My name is Chris Bolden Newsom, and I come to you I'm bringing greetings and on behalf of the Sankofa Community Farm in sunny southwest Philadelphia that is located on the property of Bartram's Garden. Bartram's Garden is a historic botanical garden. In fact, like most things in the state of Pennsylvania, they like to use that name first. If you've ever been to Pennsylvania, everything is first, right? So it's the first botanic garden in the country and blah, 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 blah. And it's a wonderful space where we grow food. We're an African diaspora farm, which means that we are rooted in the African diasporic tradition. We are called to grow foods, the foods of African and African-American ancestry. We're an intergenerational farm, so we work with elders as well as with youth, and we have regular classes around agriculture, food culture, culinary, nutritional education as well. We follow natural agriculture practices, so that will put us more in the lane of no-till, I think is the hot term nowadays. We just call it farming. And so some of those practices as well. And finally, we are an intentionally and unapologetically spiritually rooted farm, which for us means that we recognize that as a people, we of African descent, is a farm that's open to and that serves all people, first and foremost. But we are located in Southwest Philadelphia, which means we're 98% African descended people in our neighborhood. We're not gonna ignore that or go past that or try to make it something else. And so we recognize that our work is largely about promoting the return of our traditional foods, traditional healing practices, and wisdoms, which includes teaching Yankee children to sing, especially some of our traditional songs, as well as to grow and cook our traditional food. So I'm very glad to be here and very, very grateful too for the invitation. And I send greetings also on behalf of my mother and father who are farmers in Greenville, Mississippi. That's right.
Philadelphia, born and raised.
Oh, no. Greenville, Mississippi. Born and raised.
Yes.
We live in Philly. Yeah.
So our first question, just to kick off the panel, is for the panelists. As a rural or urban grower, what does urban or rural agriculture farming represent to you, and how do you connect to other growers? And I'm going to get out of your way.
As far as rural farming is concerned, most of the farmers in the rural area, they have large plots of land that they can grow their fruits and vegetables on. And as far as bringing them to the Fairview Farmers Market or any market, they have opportunity to bring stuff in small quantity or either large bulk. But also we have people that's urban farmers. They have ways of planting different things in plots of land. They may only have a small plot, an acre or two, but you can also harvest on that, like you may bring in lots of okra. You don't have a lot of land to bring in okra, so we have a lot of farmers that bring in okra to the market. I'm blessed to be there at Fairview Farmers Market so we can receive stuff to help urban farmers as well as rural farmers.
Yeah, so I really want to quote a movie that I used to watch a long time ago, and the quote was in the movie about, if people can get you to ask the wrong questions, they don't have to worry about the answers. We need to stop this thing about the competition between rural and urban. It's about mission. It's not about competition. It's about feeding people. It's about getting food to people so they can be healthy. So there is no competition, and you go places, I go places all around, and you hear the rural farmers are worried about funding going to the urban farmers, and the urban farmers are worried about we need to stop all that and be about mission of creating a safe food system for everybody.
Can we clap too? Yeah. We can clap too.
Thank you. So Eat South, at Eat South, there are two of us. My coworker, Amanda Edwards, is sitting at the table in the middle. Raise your hand, hi. So we grow about 52 varieties of fresh fruits and vegetables on less than an acre, less than a mile from here. So we are technically, I guess, urban. We're on a brownfield, so our site is contaminated with arsenic, which is why when you visit us tomorrow, you'll see everything in raised beds. Sometimes people think we have the answer, but we're always trying to let people know it's just not safe to grow in the soil, which we see as an educational moment for the community, because while arsenic is not necessarily the problem people face, people in Montgomery who live in older neighborhoods might have lead in their soil. So we use it as a teaching opportunity to educate people about urban growing and some of the hazards. But the question is also, how do we connect with other growers? So since there are two of us and our primary mission is education, in the past, Eat South has been around a lot longer than I have been in Montgomery, is that in the past, Eat South grew food and sold it at a market. But we made a decision, Eat South at the time also had more staff than it does today, to focus our growing on, our crop planting on our educational programs, so that any child who comes to the farm for a field trip, they'll harvest food and eat it. We do adult workshops and community programs, and everybody gets to take something home with them when they come to the farm. And I see that as a way of re-exciting or introducing people to fresh local food. Most of the food in the grocery stores around here, it comes from California. And it's been on a truck for a couple of weeks. So when people come to Eat South, they get to taste what fresh food is like. And then we want to, connect those people to local farmers. We also work directly with local growers. We have a farmer in Shorter, Alabama, who has a subscription community-supported agriculture model, and she comes into Montgomery and sells her vegetables, or delivers her vegetables to Eat South to her customers. We also, through our website, try to connect people with local farms. And when I was updating our website, I also noticed that I had to remove 3 farms that no longer sold produce, which was pretty sad. So I think it shows Alabama has a lot of work to do in supporting and lifting up local farms, and I'm really glad that Tuskegee is developing the Center for Urban Agriculture Innovation, because that's going to go a long way to supporting people in the community.
I think we use this one. Yeah, thank you. Wow. So as Sankofa Community Farm, as I stated earlier, we're in a unique partnership with a historic. It's technically a park now. It's a part of the Parks and Recreation System of the city of Philadelphia, but it's a historic site, right? And so it is what is registered as a Mid-Atlantic plantation. I want y'all to put that term in your head. It's new to me. I don't know if it's new to you, but what it speaks to is the fact that for centuries, or rather for many, many years, rather many decades, right, that the sort of a focus has been on plantations and slavery and all of those things that are connected, in the minds of many urban black people, and maybe rural black people too as well, unfortunately, with slavery, that those are things that happened in the South, right? Yeah. And we recognize that that's absolutely not true, and that sort of obfuscation has allowed people to I think not really present the full history. So our site, in and very intentional union with the Mid-Atlantic Plantation, Bartram's Garden, and a historical botanical garden, have the unique, I think, sort of place in the city to allow us to work with other farmers by having us create networks. We've not recently, but a few years ago, created a network called SWAG, which stands for Southwest and West Agricultural Group, in which we joined with we noticed that there are other small gardens. Think about it, big cities, even in Philadelphia, there are community gardens and plots, and people are growing food and lots of, the thing is that there isn't a lot of connection to how that happens, right? So there's no union. So we started this collaboration, and it's one of many collaborations. I want to shout out, Soil Generation, some other collaborations in the city. However, that was one way. So it allowed us, because we had sort of this vantage point of having established land. That's a big thing, right? Land everywhere, in rural situations and in urban situations. Well, a botanical garden ain't going nowhere. It's been there since 1770, I believe, right? And so it's not going anywhere. We are able that way to be able to bring in collaborators, right? And so it helps us to be able to build power, gather resources, right, as a group, and create systems that can be self-generating, right, as a result of that. So we really look to these sort of, partnerships, community grassroots to institutional partnerships, and feel like that's one of the many ways that we can get ahead of this. And I do want to speak really quickly to what Brother Shea said about the urban rural, and I absolutely agree with you. To speak I personally, as a farmer who is originally from the Deep South, who identifies as a Southerner, I find it a little disconcerting when I hear some of the buzzwords. Buzzwords always make me nervous, right? The hot words that pass, and change, and then they invariably get disparaged after 5 or 10 years when knowledge updates or whatever, right? So the idea of urban, rural, I don't like the slash as well. I don't like the idea that, because I think what our focus is that we are farmers. And in desperate times where people are literally, the food is killing them, and the surroundings are killing them. So again, I think there are times in which the urban, rural, sort of nomenclature has to be applied, because we got specific situations, growing in a city that may be a little distinct from certain rural, but I don't think it's as big of a difference as we like to say. And for me, it's really important that we do as much as we can to erase that division so that we can keep that knowledge from. We should be having partnerships and creating distribution systems between farmers in the country and farmers in the city, right? They should just be farmers in different places. So that's what I wanted to say today.
Thank you so much for y'all. Thanks, guys, for all of the. Yes. Oh, sorry. Thanks so much for all of the. Sorry. Thanks so much for those comments. I do appreciate the lack of divide between the urban and rural. We are trying to work for one food system. So I do have another question. So given the shifts in all of this, the demographics, the gentrification, and climate change, what do you see as the biggest issue facing urban or rural or just food systems, period, in the next decade? And please answer from any perspective.
Well, one of the problems that we're having, well, not so much as a problem, I guess it's just nature, we say. Like, for instance, this summer we had a lot of 100-degree weather, and like right now we're having a lot of rain going on. But in being in farming, whether you're farming in rural or urban, farming is farming. You're going to raise some good fruits and vegetables to bring to the table, so to speak. But we have to look at, if you're going to be thinking about farming, looking at some water system, looking at maybe some hoop houses or something like that. And if you're in a market, then you need to be trying to find some coolers or freezers or something like that so it can last you longer. Or if you're out in your field and you're picking a lot of crops, you can't bring them in there right away from the field because you got a lot out there you need to get. So you're trying to find some type of cooling system that can be placed out there in the field where the farmers are trying to farm at. And just remember, always trying to, like I said, come together so we can keep this food system going.
Yeah, so thank you. So one of the things, I'll say a little bit about demographics and gentrification. So in Washington, D.C., so that is a constant problem, which well, not problem, but a situation that we're dealing with. So that is changing in D.C. So the amount of folks are moving in and out, and I think it's like 10,000 people per month come to move into Washington, D.C.
Moving into D.C.?
Yeah, I mean, because
They
of the
price
job.
me out. Where
Because of the
coming from?
jobs. Their jobs, their jobs, and so that's, you know, but if I can speak a little bit about my collaboration with Tuskegee. So this is aside from the gentrification and demographic issue. So about a year or two ago, we received a USDA NIFA grant, and it was an information exchange grant. So the young lady who had the grant, she left the university, so I was given the choice of maybe giving the money back, which you don't do when you get a grant, or reconstituting that grant to make it something viable. So I reconstituted, and we worked with Tuskegee to really put something together for information exchange. So we had students from Tuskegee come up last year, and also some farmers from Alabama come up last year. And basically, we just kind of shared our information on what we're doing with hydroponics and aquaponics, but also more importantly with addressing climate change, looking at crops which specifically have been adapted to high heat indices in Washington, D.C., and growing these crops in hoop houses. Because there are a lot of crops, and I knew that some of the farmers in Alabama had hoop houses, and some of the part of the year they were not growing in these hoop houses, so we're now growing some of these summer crops in our hoop houses up at Washington, D.C., but we call them very heat-tolerant crops because they produce very reliably under very high temperatures. And also in that mix of crops which we're doing, we're looking at crops which are nutrient-dense crops that give a specific kind of nutrient density to populations for health. Also, the last and least thing that we're looking to, we call what we're doing urban agriculture. I'm gradually moving away from that term because I feel that one day, or soon, it can easily be co-opted.
Yeah. Believe it.
So I'm moving more toward the term of urban agroecology, which has a more of a social connection to it to really kind of deal with food justice, and with urban agroecology and this agroecology in general, there are a lot of kind of those co-opted things that cannot get into it. For example, the GMO seeds is not allowed in agroecology. And there's some other things that are not allowed in agroecology, but plus you do get the social and food justice benefit of agroecology. So the term that I'm really pushing the university to go in, and we're going to still use urban agriculture, but it'll be more of a conscious kind of decision to use the term urban agroecology.
Thank you. So I grew up in Troy, Alabama, which is a town about 45 miles south of here, but I kind of sound funny because I lived on the West Coast in Portland, Oregon for about 20 years. So in terms of gentrification and land, both population-wise and land, unless you're retiring from Microsoft, farming in Oregon is really hard because it's very expensive. Land is just crazy expensive there. It's a great place to grow food. No squash vine borers. It's amazing. But one thing besides the cost of living that sent me back to Alabama was really thinking about climate change. And what do we have too much of right now that California doesn't have much of at all? Rain, right. And so, again, most of the food we have right now in the stores comes from the Central Valley, and the Central Valley is using dinosaur water. They're pumping out their aquifers to grow the food we're eating, but Alabama can grow food year-round. We're surrounded by rivers, right? I mean, this is, the people, the indigenous people are Muskogee, but the settlers call them creeks, right? Because they build their cities on rivers, and there are rivers everywhere. So we have this amazing, abundant resource here in Alabama. We may not always take care of it like we need to, but I really did think about that when moving back, that this is a place of abundant water, and that we have that as a resource. And on the question of demographics, another thing that I've realized being away for 20 years is that our communities, our newcomer communities, have grown here in Montgomery. We have Korean and Korean American communities, West African communities, Mexican and Central American communities who represent both a market but a base of knowledge to draw from in agriculture. And so it's how we reach out and authentically connect with our neighbors and our communities. For example, just down the road at a staffing the desk at New South Books is a retired person from the Nigerian Ministry of Agriculture and Environment, who created a program for Nigeria where they were reforesting the country, planting millions of trees. And he's retired, and he's here to see his grandkids and hang out. And we have this expertise, and we need to connect and realize that it's here. So that's my.
I think, so to the question, a few things were mentioned, these shifts, demographics, gentrification, climate change. I personally think that all of these are really at the top of the list, all of these are top of the list issues. And I think, however, that, I would add to that, of course, all of the social stuff that's connected to that. I think a general disconnection from our food and from natural systems is a really big one too. It's easy for us to talk about like these solutions, and everybody should have a garden, and everybody should be growing container garden or whatever, but I think that there are several ideological forces that we have to come up and really, name and speak to. What are the things that have separated? What are the sort of the class distinctions? What are our associations with dirt, particularly for people of African descent, who have been in this country for generations, that that's a real block that we can't get past that, and we can't call people dummies or slow to progress or regressive or whatever, because they have a very genuine fear that is associated with the land. Now, when the land, again, I use this language often a lot. If you want to remember me by it, then you can, that the land was the scene of the crime for us. So if you were attacked and you were brutalized on the land, you are going to teach your children to avoid the land, And furthermore, if you then move to a big city because you couldn't stay on the land that you've been on for generations, you're not going to tell your children beautiful things about the land. And that's one of the big issues going on. So my perspective is coming from, I would say, less an urban farmer than a southern transplant in the north, and thinking about some of these issues that are so crucially important. So I think how we address them are really big, and when I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will say very specifically, this climate change one is a huge issue. It's a huge, because it's actually going to threaten our food supply. It's not going to threaten. It is currently threatening our food. We've been insulated by all sorts of ingenious imaginary mechanisms that will fail. We've been insulated from the real cost of food, right? Other people are feeling it. If you don't believe it, what do you think all this so-called refugee crisis and the immigrant crisis and people wanting to build walls and more walls and fences and everything else, right? These are farmers who had to leave their lands that they can no longer farm. And I really want to put it that way. That's the large situation. So, what's happening around us will soon be happening to us. So again, just to speak to that, I think that one beautiful thing that for us at Sankofa Farm has helped us to sort of, to be proactive in addressing it, is returning to our traditional foods and our traditional crops. We believe they can give you life, getting people to start eating those foods. What am I talking about? I'm talking about all your varieties of field pea that you were familiar with if you are from the South. I don't mean just black-eyed peas on January 1st. See, when our foods have been taken out of a daily lived context and we no longer recognize them as ours, and they become ritual foods. They become ritual food, and that's nice, you know. But I think at the same time, our health is literally killing us. And so I'll say that. So for the reestablishment of our health, right, we've been eating the same foods, right, for thousands of years. Many of these foods came originally from Africa, or we have adapted them through our years. The other thing about them is that many of these crops, we're talking about our okra, we're talking about our field peas, we're talking about our butter beans, we're talking about all the varieties of greens. And by the way, people of African descent, it has been listed that we have traditionally eaten over 150 different types of greens, right? We think we're doing good in the South because you know, we got turnips, collards, kale, and mustards, right? Ooh, I eat a lot of greens. No, you don't. You know? And what could it mean for our health? The last thing I'll say about that is that those foods are, by definition, adaptable to climate change. And I don't hear a lot of research talking about that, you know what I'm saying? But I don't spray my peas. I mean, well, I don't spray anything, but, but I mean, you know, but that's, you know, and likewise, I don't have to worry about pests for my okra. I keep things in balance, you know. So these traditional foods, there's something to it. And if we could reestablish them into our diet even a little bit, I think it can make worlds of difference for the climate and for our own bodies.
You can clap. I feel like I'm learning stuff. I'm up here writing things down as I. So you guys enjoying the process so far? Are you learning some good information? I don't hear anything. Are we? Yes. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Awesome. Whew. Excited. Third question. I feel like you just kind of got us. All of you just kind of led us here. So let's go all the way there and tell all the truth. We love the truth. So given this current movement of racial equity in the food system, if that's a buzzword or not, y'all let me know. But given this current movement of racial equity in food systems, what role do you see your organization, be it nonprofit, land-grant university, or community-based organization, what role do you see your organization playing in addressing issues of food insecurity, nutrition, black land loss, black farmer access, and profit in the next decade? I'm gonna reread that one more time. Those were some great words. So, given this current movement of racial equity in the food systems, what role do you see your organization playing in addressing issues of food insecurity, black land loss, black farmer access, and profit in the next decade?
As far as I'm concerned, one of the main things that we need to be teaching our young people and somewhat our elder people is eating fresh, locally grown produce. It's what keep the doctor away.
That's right.
If you would notice that in our community, we have a lot of illness that we would not necessarily have if we were eating right every day. Mm-hmm. We need to eat what we grow. And as far as our land, my name is Flora Brown. I come from a town called Browntown. My family was, back in the generation, they bought 1,000 and 1,000 of acres because they knew how important land was. And they bought it so it could stay in the family. At that time, Browntown was brown and black. But if you look at it now, there's a whole nother generation going on there because we missed the concept of what our great-great-great-great-grandparents had for us. And I know Browntown is not the only town that's been that way. Yeah. But we didn't. We came up as farmers, and as long as we were playing there, we had our children. And a lot of black farmers, young black farmers, are getting out of this business. Why? Because I can't tell them, son, quit your job and go into farming, because he'll lose his home and everything else because the money is just not there. We might be able to change that concept, but right now, farming is not something that, a lot of black kids or young black kids are getting into. Some are, and I hope we can continue to train them through Tuskegee and other universities that there is a profit in this, one way or the other, but right now it's kind of hard to look at it being that way. And we need to teach our kids and our family, when there's land left there, keep your land. Please. Don't just set it out. Even if you move north, you don't know where you're going to have to come back home to. And that's what the problem has been. A lot of people has left and went north when we knew why they left and went north, but they didn't think that one day they're going to have to come back this way. But they don't have anything to come back for.
Yes, thank you, sir. You know, one of the things we've really lost is in many cases, not everybody, we've lost a spiritual connection to the land. So about 3,500 years ago, I've had to remind people up north all the time, and the new people come to our community all the time, and they think they're the best farmers in the world because they're new to it. I say, look, 3,500 years ago, there was the first and best sustainable agriculture the planet had ever seen. And these were people of African descent, Nile Valley civilization. That was the first true sustainable agriculture because they had a spiritual connection to the land. They had a political connection to the land. They had a governance. They had a religious connection to the land. And we, in many cases, in some cases, we've lost that connection. So we really have to get that back, and Sankofa means to reach back, remember what you had or had in the past and bring it back to the future. So again, but I would urge everybody, this whole thing about food equality and food and politics, agroecology has that injected into it. We really need to look at that from a political standpoint and a social context to really get people politically and socially locked in to their rights as far as food justice is concerned. If we don't do that, if we miss that whole part of it, and that doesn't just happen in urban. I mean, agroecology is for rural areas too. All through South America, agroecology. Latin America, agroecology. Cuba, agroecology. But the social context has really played a very big and important part in food justice.
So this is a big question. So one thing to acknowledge about Eat South that I think Amanda and I think about a lot is that it wasn't necessarily created out of the needs of the community. So there are some challenges we have, one being that we are two well-meaning white women in a nonprofit, which if you've ever worked with well-meaning women in a nonprofit, that can be a problem, right? And we.
What do you mean?
Oh yeah, right. So we think about that in the work we do, and in the fact that our organization, while we didn't create it, here we are in it, and what do we do with it? So one thing that while we don't have the resources of a university, sometimes people offer us things. And so just as a concrete example of maybe how we're trying to, as the organization that we are, connect with changing the situation of Black land loss in the South, is that there's a family, the McLemore family, who had a plantation in Montgomery. They built some houses on it, and they have about 100 acres that they want to give to Eat South. We can't manage it. There's two of us, and we shouldn't. We don't know what to do with it, so we need to engage in a process with the community to find out what to do with it. And we've been talking with Dr. Shange and the soon-to-be Dr. Ratliff about what we do with this, right? So this is not ours. This is for us to hand over and let other people work with us or not let other people, but that's that problem again, right? To relinquish this land to people to decide what to do with it, if that makes sense. So that's one way we're trying to grapple with this question.
I would say, are you the only one who doesn't have a stand? No, this thing goes again. Okay.
Just pass it back.
Oh, we're passing it. Okay, I get it. Yeah, I mean, this question is a mouthful, I think. I think one of the ways, as I alluded to earlier, that we address it is that I think when you find organizations and entities, then we can't wait for this, but when you do find organizations and entities that have had the movement of heart, especially at a level of leadership, to recognize when there is a reparations process that's available. That's what I understand you to be saying. You didn't use that word, but I want to make it clear. when you recognize that these lands that were ill-gotten gains, if it was a plantation, right? And that you as a steward, to do the righteous thing, turn it over somehow to the community, hopefully to impact, that community. That I think that's a shift in the process, and so we have experienced that as well. And it's just the beginning of it too. I want to say it's just the beginning of that process too. But it is the very important beginning. At Bartram's Garden, our historical botanical garden, they have recognized that, and I think they're leading the way in that. We work in a unique partnership with them. That we're not owned by Bartram's Garden. They don't make the rules for me. They're not my boss. They facilitate the processes whereby we can get paid. They give us the physical plant, space to be able to grow our food. They give us also this land that to allow for gatherings, for education, for spiritual. We use the land also for spiritual healing, and we do connection rituals throughout the season, throughout the growing season, to make sure. And we happen to be, praise God, close to a river, so we can go down there and do all our prayer. We started praying down at the river, honestly, because we recognized that the neighbors were praying at the river. We didn't know that. We had people say, like, oh yeah, we go down there to pray sometimes. It's just so peaceful and nice. They don't even recognize what they're doing, is that they're doing healing work. That you're going to a river, as we've been doing for thousands of years, before we were made to be afraid of rivers, because they were passage points to freedom, right? They were sacred spaces, right? So I think that working right now for us with our institution, which is not perfect, I want to say that, but which I think is leading the way by providing sort of this space, providing resources, personnel to help us, deal with what does it really mean to create food sovereignty in a neighborhood where we can't keep a grocery store open, Does it mean, how do we shift the paradigm and the question that we're not waiting on grocery stores to come and to deem us fit enough to have space to stay or that sort of thing? How do we do what we did before? So a big part of that, I think, for us has been working with institutions that recognize they're in a black neighborhood and that they need to be responsive, perhaps even overly responsive to the needs of this community, particularly because it has been so long that they neglected that, right? So that's for us, I think, is one of the, and I'll say also too in closing that they allow us to host, they host a 65-bed community garden. Thank you for that correction, because it helped me remember to correct, right? Is that a over 65-bed garden, so that people who are coming back and to get in touch with the records, because again, y'all, I recognize, like, I consider myself an immigrant in Philadelphia. My parents, in '65, if they was on a train, they would have to, when they hit Philadelphia or vice versa, they hit the border of wherever, they got to change seats, they have to present passes, and they got to get their ear ready for a different dialect. That's a different country. Okay, so to me, that so recognize it. So I come at it with that, and a lot of black folks don't like to call me an immigrant. Well, I think that honestly, for me, this is what helps to understand this. The immigrant experience, insofar as it is what has been killing us, is our disconnection from both the food and from one another, and that this space has allowed us to sort of create that. And that's what food sovereignty is, when people are taking it into their own hands, right? Their own health, and not waiting on a grocery store or an institution. Or you said you was gone. So yeah.
Yes, thank you. It was a really, really good question. I'm so thankful for all of the answers, and I just want to touch on something that Kayla mentioned about the 100 acres. We have been talking about that, and a part of my research is to create a Black Belt Land Trust. I mean, it's needed. It is needed. Yeah. Yes. So hoping to get that project up. I mean, we're looking for answers, guys, and this is the answer. We need to give back, so thank you for that. So this is our last question that we have, but we're going to invite the audience for questions, so please be thinking as I lay this loaded question on the panel. All right, guys, so firstly, what does the food system in your community look like? Do you see an area of collaboration with your current efforts? And any collaboration with outside partners for the ideal food system? More specifically, do you see a collaboration with our university, Tuskegee, being a positive for progress in your near future? Thanks.
Of course, we do see an opportunity to work with Tuskegee, because they have so many grants and learning bases that can help most of the farmers that's out here. One of the things is to go to them to get knowledge of what you don't have knowledge on, how to grow whatever it is and how to move it. One thing about a lot of farmers, they can grow a lot of produce, and sometimes they don't have ways to move it. I'm at a farmer's market, even though we're there 7 days a week, it's only so much product that we can move. But when I have farmers that have an abundance of products, they need to be able to move that because it costs too much money to grow products that you're not able to sell, and nobody wants to throw it away. And just trying to be promoting farmers market. One thing about it, like in my neighborhood where we're at, we're in a low-income neighborhood, a food desert, so to speak. And we have very few grocery stores there. But one thing about our people, and that's kind of like work everywhere, we tend to not support each other. You can have farmers, some of the best produce on the table, and what the first day we're gonna walk in there and say, it's too high.
Yeah.
You know what I tell them? Go buy some fertilizer. And come back and tell me it's too high. Put a tire on your tractor and come back and tell me it's too high. But I always tell people to support farmers, no matter where you see them at, in my neighborhood or in somebody else's neighborhood, because it's hard being a farmer. It is hard being a farmer. That's why I was saying earlier, we have a lot of dying farmers because of the fact that we don't have enough support that we should have there. That's from the higher institution all the way down to the consumer. People don't support each other like they need to support us to make this thing keep rolling, and we do need it. I always say good food is like good music. It brings people together, and it makes your life healthier as you go. But anyway.
Thank you. So the question is, what does the ideal food system look like in your community? So for me, in what we're doing, equitable and sustainable. Those two things are really key. One of the things I found out that we had for our Tuskegee collaboration grant, when we had the farmers from Tuskegee come up last year, so about 7 or 8 farmers from Tuskegee came up last year. And so we asked them, like, what are some of the barriers that really stop you from doing some of the things you would like to do? So sustainable farming is somewhat a challenge, but having the right equipment to do some things that you need to do on the farm is priceless. It's priceless. And some of these machines don't really cost a lot, but they could be held in a type of cooperative where the spader or the no-till planter or these things could be passed from farm to farm to farm in a collaborative effort to make farmers and feel more engaging with sustainable practices and making their farm operations more profitable. So that's key. So another thing is our collaboration with Tuskegee has been it's been a mind-blowing experience for me because I'm a third-generation Washingtonian. My family came from Alabama to D.C. in 1918 from Seawright and Andalusia, Alabama. So to really come back and really to play a part with Tuskegee and give something back and help has been a very spiritual experience for me. And just working with another HBCU and trying to help kind of gap that food security issue with HBCUs and things like that, because one of the things that most people don't know, and I guess some of the students might know here, but there's so many students who go to HBCUs and colleges in general, they don't have food. We have a food pantry at our school. A lot of the food from our farm goes to the student food pantry. And by the time it gets there, it is all gone. There are a lot of food insecure students in the United States right now. And last but not least is the collaborative kind of efforts we have in community. So we have about 8 people who came down from DC. Raise your hand. Different groups. Nonprofit organization, Bread for the City. I have 2 folks right here, returning citizens, who have a garden in the community which engages returning citizens and teaching them sustainable farming practices, which I don't know many places. I don't know, I guess there are some places that are doing it, but I just don't hear a lot about it. I don't hear a lot about it, and I know that there's a need for this. So I hope that they are doing something like that in Montgomery for returning citizens in urban areas to show them how to be profitable, make money for things like that. So there's a lot of things that we're doing, but I mean, it's been a tremendous experience. But for me, just to keep our collaboration with Tuskegee and as far as grants and going for bigger grants and not let all that money go to the larger ag schools, which they get a huge pot of money, And meanwhile, we are kind of scraping around for peanuts. So my ideal of doing that is really making this grant work what we're doing now, and then going later for bigger pots of money so we can teach urban food and security and nutritional security to HBCUs.
So the ideal food system, in my mind, is one that feeds people well, pays farmers, and maintains our soil, water, and air.
Yeah.
And I love this work that I'm doing now because it's all like if we can make this work, and we will, it's all positive. We all win. People have thriving, vibrant food businesses. People have delicious food to eat, and we get to enjoy clean water and fresh air. We're so excited about the Center for Urban Agriculture Innovation coming to Montgomery. It's going to be amazing, and one thing that I enjoy working with Tuskegee is that they care about small farmers. They're here to help people develop, half an acre, a quarter acre, a lot to 5 acres. And I've talked with farmers who have gone to their county offices and been told to come back when they got a real farm, because it's not necessarily the attitude in Alabama that if you're growing fresh fruits and vegetables, that you're a farmer. But that's that is what it is. But we can grow, we can grow enough food to feed our state and our region, and I'm looking forward to what's coming next.
You didn't have any more to say about that?
I probably could.
You should. Okay, if it hits you, let me know. Oh, okay, just get it out the way. Okay. Done with that one. Whoa, okay, this question. Yeah, I mean, I think it's an intense one, because then we're asked to sort of visualize and fantasize a little bit. What does the ideal food system look like? And then that, for me, is really speaking to the bigger question of what does an intact whole community looks like? That's essentially what we're talking about, because again, food is a connector, for me. It is not, it's a healthy food system, a thriving food system, and a sovereign food system is one that's owned by the people who are using it and created by the people who are using it. That cannot be disentangled from a community where you have schools that are serving the young people, where you got safety on the streets, where you have efforts to end environmental injustice by making sure that you got policies and spaces, that don't kill people, especially poor people. It means that that in the city planners go to plan stuff that they would think, that they would consider it to be absolutely, inappropriate and unimaginable to lay out sewer lines and water lines and electricity hookups and schools and not provide for how people are going to eat in those neighborhoods. Yes. Right? That is actually a part. That's not an extra. That's not a side dish. That is a part of what is done. Right? So for me, I mean, I think all of that. To me, it looks like one way that we have worked towards that is we've created a tool library, or creating a tool library, much like my brother Shay was talking about. And I will confess that part of that has been done through USDA dollars. Okay. And that is something to help us sort of distribute sort of that amongst the different farmers in our network. We also, too, are working towards creating a distribution network, like what Ms. Flora was talking about. It's crucial. You have to be able to move the food. It don't mean nothing if you can grow acres and acres of food, y'all, if it's spoiled in the field. And I know it, and every farmer here knows the experience of sitting up and watching your food. Hundreds and thousands of pounds all over the years just go bad or go in the compost, or you try to, so so moving this food and getting the distribution. I think Tuskegee has always been a huge part of that, because I want to give honor and praises to Dr. Carver, to Dr. Washington, and to all of the people. I haven't heard those righteous and holy names mentioned since I've been here, and so I want to lift them up and I want to invite them to the space, for that reason. I mean, because so Tuskegee has always been central, I think, in that way for black agriculture, but then went beyond national agriculture.
like nationally, like people all over the country, particularly the South. Dr. Carver, he started building solutions for this. So again, I said we can't forget these things, you know. So he went around teaching people in the little makeshift schools and these sort of, and went to rural places, spoke to people in languages they understood, went to their churches, went to where they were, and said, this is desperate, you're dying, we're gonna die. He foresaw what was happening right now, right? And his goal, just like Mama Fannie Lou Hamer's goal, y'all, was ultimately to keep people in the South. Keep the people of the South in the South, people not having to move. So now that we're in the situation of what do we do? You know, I think relying on institutions like our HBCUs, but especially a Tuskegee, you know, and other, 1890, land-grant institutions is more crucial now than ever to be able to find diverse ways to speak to these things and not just the same old ways. And the last thing I'm gonna say, y'all, is that even though, and I will say this as a person who's received support from the USDA too, it's not all about the USDA. Our people created, you know what I'm saying? Everybody got quiet, hear no amens, right? I hear no amens for that, but I'm gonna say it. It's not all about the USDA or waiting on the USDA funding or waiting on the USDA or any other United States governmental entity to determine and bless our identity, to tell me I'm a farmer. Ludicrous that they call specialty crops. Real food is called specialty crops. So the sister got up early when she started to preach and talk about we live in a world where a lie is the truth and the truth is a lie. You know what I'm saying? That part I get. So again, when we start talking about that, so again, this is why I'm not saying to not receive. Again, I believe that this is what is due to the poor farmer, right? So that's what I'm gonna say. So I ain't going after it, and I'm not having this great gratitude. You blessed me. You gave me what was mine. And the second part of that is while we are doing that and acting in good faith. And in good faith, right? That we are also doing what Mama Fannie Lou Hamer and them other people were doing, is creating these next, where we've forgotten what we've already done, y'all. They were shipping food, y'all, in lines. They had lines going up from Boston, Georgia, all the way up to Boston, Massachusetts. They had this stuff laid out, and thousands of people eat. They had Mama Fannie Lou Hamer sent care packages of food on a regular basis to Southern families in Chicago. Gave me chills when I heard about it. To Southern families in Chicago, so that they would have their traditional foods, because they learned that you can buy Italian food in the stores, you can buy fake Chinese food in the store, you can buy foods of every ethnicity, you can be able to ethnic food. We couldn't buy our own foods in the store. So she said, well, I'm gonna get you your own foods, right? So we've done it before. The Shirley Sherrods of the world and all these other people are still here, y'all, but they won't be around forever. Again, Tuskegee, HBCUs like this, as repositories of that knowledge and as gathering spaces for those of us who are doing it, play a crucial role, so we gotta support them.
So, thank you. One more time, round of applause for our panel. Thank you all so much for your knowledge. And you inspired me, Mr. Bolden Newsom. I will quickly just want to shout out some Tuskegee ancestors that did pave the way for us. So, of course, Dr. George Washington Carver and his assistant, his partner, Austin Curtis, as well as Booker T. Watley. Also, B.D. Mayberry. If you knew B.D. Mayberry, raise your hand. There we go. Also, Juanita Coleman, the first female extension agent. A lot of people don't realize that there were women in the field very early, home economics. So we lift up Juanita Coleman. Y'all got me emotional. There's a lot of energy. So if we could all just take a deep breath, please, a collective breath. If we could just inhale through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. Exhale. All right, one more time. Breath is such a gift, right? Breath is such a gift. First and last thing you'll ever do. One more time. Inhale through the nose. 1, 2. Hold it. Let it go. So thank you. That was just to acknowledge all the energy, all the power, but we're not done. We are not done. Now it's time to take questions from the audience. So we have the beautiful soon-to-be Dr. Ratliff right here with the microphone. If anyone has a question, please, right there in the back. Thank you, my sister. I see we already got a line. I got 1, I got 2, I got 3, I got 4.
Sorry, the poll was black.
And we'll stop at 4 for now. Remember your number, because I don't anymore. So remember your number. So we're gonna start with 1. And you can ask you can ask your question to an individual on the panel or to the whole panel.
Okay, it's, 1, thank you all for everything you're bringing to the table today. My name is Tanur. I run a small farm in Greene County, about 2 hours north of here. And it's called iLogic, Institute for the Love of Genius and Community. And the idea is that we connect arts and agriculture with the people who need it. And the basic premise of it is that 6 years ago, I lived in the projects, and I have been seeking prosperity. And so to create a program that can connect people who are low income, who are dealing with generational poverty, back to the land so we can recognize our access to abundance. And so what I'm working on is developing an exchange program between urban and rural farmers to be able to bring rural farmers into the city and to see where the food is going when we're able to grow enough food to actually send in large batches, and for urban farmers to be able to come into the rural areas and be able to experience what that whole process is like. And in the process of that, building sustainable infrastructures to be able to share knowledge and food among each other. And so my question is, can we work? That's my question.
Good question. It inspired silence. That's the best type of question. You got to think before you answer.
I
Thank
can
you.
kind of ask a part of it, but I'm going to pass it to the young man on the end. I heard you saying, I believe that you all are growing produce and you want to bring it into the city as well as distribute it where you live at. You can, I guess, put out an announcement that you have it there. If you have a local market and whatever days that you're going to be there so the people can come there. Or you can just do a farmer's market if you have a church there. Let them know that they want to buy out the church. Or if you want to bring it into Montgomery to my farmer's market, then we can see if any farmers there would like to buy some of it.
And I would say to that, I mean, I think that one of the important, if you all are a new startup, like 5 years or less old, or no? 3 years, okay, all right. So then we would classify that as kind of new. Then I think for me it's so important to collaborate. I think that finding opportunities to collaborate with other farmers and other agricultural, producers in the area is crucial. I think that because there's that power in the unity is that we don't have it. Just the reality is that we don't have everything we need to create the food system we want right now, right? But we do have many more tools than we know about, and they're lying in different places, I think. And so finding ways to collaborate as much. I'm curious what you like, how the art part plays into what you all are doing with agriculture, and I'm asking a genuine question because I know one of the things that in farming in the city, coming in contact with many entities or organizations that are, that's the premise, that they're doing art and agriculture, and I'm not really clear like how that works or what that means. I don't have to be either though. What I do think is what is crucial though is whatever you're doing, if it's in community and community based, is find those resources that are right there. Find those people who know how to do it. Find the places, like Ms. Flora was saying, you make use of organization. This is a Black-run organization. Okay, so then if you all are Black and keeping it Black, then find out who in the community, you can collaborate with in order to have more sites to grow land, community gardens, that sort of thing. Like she said, tapping into the churches, and I would say in our Philadelphia churches and masjids, for Black people, is really, really key because those are the last landholders in Black communities. So, I don't hear people talking about that, don't get uncomfortable because that church, you ain't been to church in a long time. Still part of that's still part of the culture of who you are and where you are, ever connected you are to it, right? And I think so thinking about who are the people that I might not be connecting with who are here, because maybe the first person you talk to won't get it. Don't let that discourage you, but continue and go on. And then tap into those elders. Tap into those elders that are there, as much.
And
There you go.
That's where I'm trying to create a connection. And so, like right now, we're building cabins so that there can be lodging on the place to be able to facilitate these exchange programs.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, yeah, you're from one of the tightest areas in the city.
South Philadelphia, born and raised. I got to do
Okay,
it.
you can say that. You got to say it.
I give him Whitson every time you say Philadelphia. So just to move on, just to get to our second question, but I'm gonna get your information because you sound like somebody we need to have up here next year. So I'm gonna get your information. And moving on, question 2, and we only have time for one more question after this question, but the people will be around, we will get, the knowledge will be shared.
Hi, I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, which is, I guess, an urban part of Jefferson County, and from Bush Hills, which is an old, established neighborhood going through a lot of revitalization. So we created a community garden, and we've been working to collaborate. A lot of people are familiar with Jones Valley Teaching Farm in Birmingham, and that's how I learned about this conference. So we've been reaching out and collaborating. I wish somebody would just reach out and give us 100 acres of land or offer it, but it's really difficult. So I would really be interested. I heard you say, and we're not waiting to be saved. We're working every day and paying our way, but it helps to have those USDA grants and those other opportunities. So what are some resources that the panel would recommend?
Thank you.
Well, just keep doing what you've been doing. I think you say you've been looking for grants and so forth. So, keep looking for whatever kind of grants and funding there is out there. And ask, go to your county extension office and to the
They have,
USDA office.
and they have
All
a
right.
grant called SARE.
Okay.
It's a Sustainable Agriculture Research Education Grant, SARE. SARE grants, and so they give all kind of funding for a very innovative kind. SARE.
Sarah.
I'm sorry. Will you speak closer to the mic, please, sir? I'm sorry.
Okay, it's called a SARE grant, SARE. It's a Sustainable Agricultural Education Research Grants. But these grants go out to, sometimes they go just to colleges, sometimes they go just to universities, but they also go to farmers too. So you come along with a very innovative kind of new way to do something, they will fund it. You just write a grant and it goes through the process. And yeah, so there are a lot of things out there like that you can get funding to do some of the things that you need to do. At the University of DC, we have the specialty crop block grant. So every year we get money from the USDA to give out to people in the community. So these gentlemen here, the Hustlers of Harvest, they are recipients of our grants, specialty crop block grant. Two-time recipients of the grant.
So is that in your local area?
Well, that's statewide. That's United statewide.
Oh, so I can apply to you?
No, you can't apply to me. You apply to your USDA office or here in Alabama.
State Department.
Special crop block grant. No, it's not. Yeah, they talk to those folks right there. They've been through the process right here. They've been through the process.
I am. That's what I'm hearing.
And the gentleman right here, he had with a group called Bread for the City, which is a huge group, which we donated most of all the produce we had. We had a large grant with them for about 3 or 4 years, which they came out and they got funding and they helped us manage and distribute the food, all the food that grows on the farm, because we have this kind of labor share. So we did a lot of that. So there are a lot of ways out there for grant funding, for creative ways to get paid to do what you do.
And I would also imagine that there's some other people in this room that have answers and resources to that. So I would invite you all to link up or network after this and just kind of, there you go. Gather around my sister right here after this and let's exchange some resource information. That's an outcome, right? Outcome. Output, outcome. Doesn't matter. We're gonna move on. We're gonna move on. Oh, I'm sorry. Kayla, I'm sorry.
So one thing to look at too is sort of local corporate chains like BBVA Compass, right? They have a $5,000 grant. And it's an online BBVA Compass, and so it's an online application. Aldi has a grant. Home Depot has a $5,000 gift card for infrastructure. So it's not as I've done USDA grants before. There's a lot of reports. I don't want to discourage anybody from doing that because it's great funding, but it's the hassle level is different from like a local corporate funder. So there are sort of these smaller pools of money out there to look for too.
And I would just add to that, also look to foundations. I think we have really survived from those little bitty, those small grants, a Home Depot or, but look to foundations as well, that are a little more independent. And they like to see collaborations. I know I keep pushing that word, but they like to see when 3 or 4 people doing the same thing have gotten together.
Yes.
Everybody, that's one of the buzz words in most grants now.
And so we will get our last comment.
A comment to the first question.
A comment to the first
Actually,
question.
the comment to the first question to the sister back there, I spoke to her a little earlier, right, when she was talking about basically art, when it comes to agriculture. We use that as in agriculture too. We build furniture out of wooden pallets that people throw away. So, that's a part of art and recycling and collaborating with people. We make all type of stuff. Like when we grow vegetation and get ready to give it away, we got a little small box that we made like a food giveaway. So when we pick up too much stuff out of the garden, we put it in that little box and put it on Facebook or Instagram for people to come and get. And see, the art part of her is like we also make African statues and stuff like that, right? To keep the scarecrows away and stuff like that, right? And we build raised beds, wheelchair accessory gardens for those people. So that's what she basically probably talking about when it comes to art. One thing that we left out, a lot of people do grow, but how many people build? A lot of times of our money, our grant monies that we pay to contractors to build stuff when we can teach this on our own. I learned this trade right here being incarcerated, so I would like to give it back to the people. And I learned this in 1987, being incarcerated. So I would like to give this back to those people, those youth, because that's what I don't really see in here, a lot of our youth. And that's what I mean I understand, but I'm just saying, like, they should be in here every day, all the time, because the basic thing about Hustlers to Harbors, our thing is we are a group of returning citizens that collaborate with the young and old generation that want a better, sustainable way of life. You don't have gray, bro. We do. So we got to teach that to you. Oh, you got it? Okay, great. It's under there. But guess what? For those who don't got it, we want to get that wisdom back, though, right? So, each one teach one, right? And I don't want to keep talking because I know we got to end it, but that's where we at when she's talking about art. We got to put that back in our gardens, because remember, we sung songs in the garden, but we forgot that we built stuff in the gardens, too, for them landmarks. For Harriet Tubman and the rest, they had landmarks. They didn't just run, they had landmarks. But let me let you go.
All right.
All right, and so before we close out, Jasmine is unveiling to you all right now. This was this was a surprise. We hadn't planned on sharing this, but we are, because Kayla and the group, everyone and panel, we see it, y'all see it. So what this is right here, Kayla mentioned the TU Urban Ag Innovation Center. You guys might have seen we had the groundbreaking on Tuesday. This is a new project that's coming, and when you talk about how do you put art with agriculture, this is an example. So we do Tuskegee we do dialogues, and at one of our dialogues, a man sat back the whole time. He didn't engage with us. I'm like, what are you doing? And he was frantically drawing this, and then he later colored it. And this is Mr. Nathaniel Lee from Alabama State University. And so what this represents, the tract, the area of land where we're working in is called the Peacock Tract. It was named after a man whose last name was Peacock, who owned slaves and who owned that land. Later, this became the area and the location. This area is really close to us over by Grady Street. And this area, the people live there were the people that went to Dexter Avenue, who went to Martin Luther King's church, who were in the congregation, who fought for the civil rights movement. But a lot of people don't realize after they fought, what happened, they were punished. So the highway that you may have traveled on today was put directly through their community, which happened all over the nation, right? And so that led to 40, 50, 60 years of strategic disinvestment, which led to what my brother said here, not a food desert, because deserts are natural, food apartheid. And so what we do now, what this picture signifies, is the Peacock Tract. And so we've turned the peacock into the Sankofa bird. The artist did. And so the bird is looking into the past, and he's looking at Dr. Carver, and Dr. Carver's in the middle. So the bird is looking to the past so he can go back and fetch that wisdom to move to the future, and around him is vegetables and color and life. And so this is an example that you can sit here and take notes, or you can sit here and drop, yep, clap for it. So art is everywhere, right? We can decolonize sessions like this, but you can draw. Those are valid and they matter in the grand scheme of things. And so I'm gonna close out here. I'm sorry. I know so many people had great things to speak on, but I invite you all to stay after and to share these things. But a few housekeeping things. I'm sorry. A few housekeeping things. Oh, my sister. You said, how can you purchase it? Oh, okay.